Then you and the old Wolfman side by side, eh?
Great idea. Yeah, come on, Andy. Old Derek wants his word taken. A real EastEnders barmaid.
Yeah, I had a really good time actually. I really enjoyed it, and it was. I played in their football team as well, so they had a celebrity football team, so I was quite useful at that time. So that was fun, and I think I was at the time with Dirty Dan and all that time, and that was a very, very popular show at the time. I think about 17 million viewers watched one of the episodes I was in, but my episode, as they all call it. But yeah, no, they work very hard, I suppose, and it's a very tough schedule, and which continues.
2 degrees, it's a very weak signal, can't get the range exactly, but I swear it wasn't there a second ago, sir.
I saw that you were in Tomorrow Never Dies, which I was actually talking to Hugh Bonneville yesterday, your fellow co-star in that exact scene.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, what was that experience like making a Bond film, being part of such a legendary franchise, even if it was a small scene?
Yeah, no, it was very exciting. I think we drove down there together, actually. I think he drove me down in his little car, his little mini metro, I think. We drove down the A3 to do that job. I'm pretty sure we did. And yeah, I think, and then I told my son, who was about 4 at the time, I said, I'm in a James Bond film. And he said, who are you playing? James Bald. Which I thought was pretty tough. That's not changed. He's unrelenting. But yeah, it was fun. Yeah.
If I'm going to hell, then I'm taking you with me.
Obviously, you started that with Aidan Turner and Russell Tovey very early on in their career. They've obviously gone on to become, huge stars in their own rights. But I wondered, what did you think of them at the time in that early point in their career? Was there any kind of advice that you gave to them while you were working with them?
They didn't need any advice from me. I mean, they were both exceptional. And Leona Critchlow, I mean, that team was Sinead Keenan. She came in as well. She was superb, and I've been working. I remember I've been working in the theatre at the National Theatre, playing a sort of villain, playing an SIS officer who went to interrogate Tom Hollander and try and get this secret out of him. It was Joe Penhall. Was the writer who wrote Blue Orange, and then has worked as a writer in America as a writer, and as well. So, and that character was like the nicest guy you'd ever meet, and so it so happened that production coincided with the audition for the meeting for Being Human. So I thought, maybe I should try it this way. So I actually almost transplanted that character into Herrick, and it sort of worked, and I think it's the first time I'd really played a villain, and actually that was my I suppose that you could say that was my sort of break in television, really. I was doing a lot of work in the theatre in the West End and at the National and stuff, and then this came along, and I think I just knew how to play him. I remember doing one scene where I emerge in the 3rd series. I emerge out of the ground naked, and nobody wants to see that, I know. And I had what they call a dignity pouch, so I had things to make certain things, but as I emerged, it's supposed to be in the countryside, in the middle of the in a snow-filled countryside in the middle of wherever, and we shot it in a park in Bristol. So as I emerged from the ground naked, a group from the local care home were walking across with their aged care workers in their wheelchairs and things, and just watching me emerge out. I think it scarred them.
I can imagine that must have been an interesting experience for you as well, being like, oh, people are watching me that shouldn't be.
What can I do? Yeah. As I said, there was no full nudity, just to make that point clear.
Yeah.
Right, my name's Gordon Shakespeare. Just telling you now, you thought you were here to see Hollywood. It's the only reason you're here, to meet those people, not to see this substandard chav fest.
Fans absolutely love those films, and there's, at the time, obviously, critics as well, they kind of were a bit more, what's the word? Middling to it. Yeah. Yeah. I wonder, what was that kind of experience like, seeing the difference in like the viewer's response and the critic's response? Yeah,
Nativity has been this sort of behemoth that has just snowballed, and we made them many years ago now, but And at the time, I think I remember that I did read one or two reviews that were really disparaging about it, and I do, because it was one of the early films, I suppose, I'd done. When did we make? About 17 years ago or something. And I wanted it to do well because I'd really enjoyed making it, and I think I understood why, because it was all improvised. It's all improvised on camera, so there's no script. We knew what the scenes were about, but essentially it was getting the kids to perform and be funny and string things together in that way. And I think it was a unique way of filmmaking, particularly with kids in that context of a Christmas film. And I think the producers and the backers were confident enough to give Debbie the ability to make a film in that way. And because it was made in that way, the spontaneity and the joy of the kids and the innocence of the kids all really paid off. And that's why it's had this incredible longevity. And it's a beautiful mix of something that is sentimental. I mean, it has sentiment anyway. It's full of love, those films, and joy and silliness. And it's completely connected with each generation, as it has done. And, I'm only part of that story, but I remember making it thinking, this has got to be fun. You've got to find the comedy in this every moment. And so, yeah, it's very satisfying to see it confound any kind of critical view of it early on, that it's now been borne out, and it just connects with people. It's not about reviews, those sorts of films. It's about connecting with people, and it's done that.
I mean, what the hell do I know? But I guess for what it's worth, all I'm really saying is that if you do have to make a choice deciding between one or the other, then it probably has to be Claire.
Yes.
Right, fine.
I mean, doesn't it?
I wonder, having such a great cast that you're working with, like Hugh Bonneville and Jessica Hines as well, I wondered what was kind of your fondest memory on set making that?
W1A was a real treat to do, and I think we did 3 series. And I remember the first series we were filming, and we were seen as a kind of inconvenience in New Broadcasting House. People would be coming in with their real Bromptons. I mean, mine was real, but they would come in with their folding bicycles through in, and we were getting in their way, and there were signs saying "carry on as normal," and people were completely resentful. What is this filmmaking? And then in the second series, when we had a bit of success with it, then we were in the middle of a take. Me and Hugh Bonneville, who can't work without me, obviously, poor thing. We were doing this scene together, and the first assistant director said, "Can't," because in the background there are all these BBC employees with their phones recording it, because everyone was sort of addicted to it. In fact, where we are now, we actually shot in here when this building was sort of not used for a while. We shot over about 15 minutes from the loo, just to so yeah, and that was fun. Difficult to make, very, very hard to make. But what we would do is we'd hold hands all round, because in a room like this that would be called the John Inman or something, where we're in John Inman today, is that you would be around the sort of periphery, and the words would just sort of whiz around like that, and we'd hold hands and just jump in,
One of those voices have been that of a woman.
It certainly could have been, but will he knock anything over?
Someone, one person or two?
3 definitively.
Obviously, we've got to talk about the lost honour of Christopher Jeffries, because you obviously won a BAFTA for that, and that's quite a harrowing, true story that happened to him, and him being vilified in the press because of his being questioned over Joanna Yates's murder. And I wondered, how would you describe your experience making a show like that?
Well, the lost honour of Christopher Jeffries was a real, incredibly satisfying thing to make, irrespective of the reaction and its success. It was the making of it that was extraordinary. Occasionally things come along where planets align and there's not much, you're almost led by other forces. There was the force that obviously a young woman had died. Joanna Yates had been murdered. That was you felt a sense of responsibility for a story that you're making about the death of a daughter. And I myself had lost a young daughter some years previously, so I was weirdly connected in that way. It was being made by a friend of mine, Roger Michel, who we lost recently, a brilliant filmmaker, who I'd only worked with in the theatre, and I thought that he wouldn't necessarily use me in TV, and that was fine. But it was nice to be given that opportunity with him, and it was shot in Bristol, and everyone that works on it was from that area, and that was all deliberate. And so it was partly constructed probably by Roger and set up in that way, and also certain things seemed to fall into place. And also I think it was about something, as you've said, it's about terrible loss to a family of their daughter, about press regulation and how that needs to be monitored, and about the celebration of an eccentric, and to a certain extent a sort of thriller role of who did it and why. So though all those things came together, but I was able to employ perhaps some of my things that I'm quite good at, which is impersonating, and there's a little streak of comedy in it, but playing an eccentric, I've played lots of sort of people who have eccentricities and are different. So it all sort of came together, So it was incredibly special for that. And I do remember, doing scenes across the table, which were, I thought something's happening here, So an award too was very nice. But it was the making of it that was so special.
Obviously, you're part of Taboo, which is a show that I feel like a lot of fans are always calling for it to return for a second season. I wonder, have you heard anything about the potential comeback of that show?
I don't know what's going on with Taboo. I mean, I know that at one point there was talk of doing another one, and I think they asked me if I would be interested in doing another one, and that if there was, that my character would be in it. So I don't know what's happening with that, but it was a remarkable series. I think it's how you set things up, isn't it? Often I think Taboo employed 3 Scandinavian directors to direct it, and so there was this very different feel to it, beautifully designed. I mean, the design elements, extraordinary costumes, and my side did fantastic costume that I loved, and I had a say in what I would wear. But it's Stephen Knight, isn't it? I mean, what a script. Just the best script. And I made friends with Jonathan, Price, who I went on to work with on other things as well. So, yeah, that was nice. And Tom, Tom Holland I thought was exceptional, isn't it? And so, yeah, and Tom Hardy. And I've got pictures of myself and Tom Hardy on the set, and people faint when I show them that. Yeah. It's like Beauty and the Beast, isn't it? And I just go like that. What? Yeah. I know Ryan Reynolds as well. I don't know him. I don't know him. I did play football for Wrexham. Well, I didn't play football for Wrexham. I was on Wrexham's books as a teenager, and I don't think he was born then, actually, Ryan Reynolds, was he? But anyway.
The royal family has been extremely helpful in keeping this special relationship afloat. And given the predicament the country finds itself in economically...
You'd like us to roll out the red carpet, make a bit of a fuss.
What was it like to play Harold Wilson, but also the show itself kind of has been hit out over the years with claims that it plays fast and loose with historical accuracy in a way. So I wondered, what did you think of the approach to that aspect of the show as well?
Well, The Crown is a behemoth, isn't it? And it is a brilliantly made piece of television. I think I don't know what the numbers are, but I think it's the most watched thing. And there are reasons for that. I would say from the start that what is the truth, what is even a perfect historical book about an incident is only a view of what has happened. And I think it's condescending to think that audiences would believe that as verbatim, as something that I think audiences are intelligent enough to know what is a fictional account of real events. So, and what that does, I think it allows, you could say that Peter Bogg is a historian. It is his view on history, and what he chooses, and some of the beautiful episodes that he's made throughout the series are particular instances. I mean, if I talk about my own experience, the Aberfan episode is such a heartfelt, extraordinary piece of television, and having lost a child myself and being part of something about the loss of those children and done in such an amazing way with this incredible team, and the emotional effect of that programme that would potentially affect change or certainly understanding of grief and all those sorts of things. I'm incredibly proud of that. And if it was just a documentary, and I've seen documentaries which are very powerful, but you can invent with a fiction based on real events what may be going on inside a character's head, and all these views that Peter has about, the mixture of public and private life within the royal family is his view on it. And so all I can say is that it's incredibly popular, and also that it's just great to get a little slice of what Britain was like in the 60s. And I think, whatever one thinks about the royal family, that those little slices of ordinary people's lives throughout that series, I think they're remarkable. So I think we should just make sure that we take a lot of pride in this British project that was made, that has become this enormous international hit.
Someone who knows our world, our community, needs to write this. Otherwise, they'll get it wrong. Please try and understand.
You made Des as well with David Tennant, who's absolutely terrifying as Dennis Nilsson.
He's a terrifying person. There's no acting on his part.
I wondered, there was an interesting dynamic between the two of you in those scenes, because in such a kind of twisted narrative that it was. So I wonder, what was it like to work together in that show?
Well, on Des, which is the story of Dennis Nilsson, the serial killer, horrific tale. David Tennant, like Hugh Bonneville, can't work without me. So we had gone on from several shows together. We did Around the World in 80 Days, we've done W1A, this is talking about, they're both linked to that actually. So David only came up with that performance because I was part of the setup. It's an amazing piece, isn't it? And I was lucky enough that I played the guy who wrote this brilliant book, Brian Masters, who wrote Killing for Company, which I have to say I have narrated for Audible. And I did that. They asked me to do it, and I said, can I do it in character as the character that I played? And I mention it only because it's available on Audible. But I read that book, which is absolutely harrowing. And I hadn't read the whole book in prep, but it's a horrific book in the detail of what happened. But it also does gesture at to why these people do things like this, and that's what Brian's intention was in his meeting with Dennis Nilsson while he was in custody awaiting trial. He managed to get in to talk to him, which is a very unusual thing to do anyway, pre-trial. And because Dennis Nilsson was a narcissist, he was then, and loved talking about himself, like actors, I think that's where the similarities end, was that he was able to get all this information and try and understand why someone would do these things, not to lessen what they had done, and not to see that as an excuse or find reasons not to find the whole thing abhorrent, but just to find it is wide. And if you look into Nilsson's childhood, it is horrific, and that does give some of the reasons why he went on to do that. But David was absolutely just astonishing in it, and he was utterly consistent all the way through. He did this great thing, which actually Hugh does as well, which you're very economical about showing an audience what you're feeling. Just stay very straight in character. There was no look at me how weird I am. It was a very straight, which Hugh does in W1A. Really, it's a very straight performance, and every now and again I've just turned the comedy button a little bit, and it takes a lot of discipline to do that. And I think David, I think it's probably David's best performance, isn't it? And again, it was with me.
DCI Laura McDonald, I'm your SIO. Chief Super hasn't signed me a DS Dodds.
That's me, Mum.
Oh, okay. What have we got?
Someone's been murdered.
The show is part of what I would like to call cozy crime genre of shows. What has interested you most about playing Dodds over the years?
I love playing Dodds, and what I like about him is that you never quite know where he's coming from. You think you know him, and I think I know him, and then he surprises me. So that's partly what I need to do with audiences. You think, does he understand what's going on here? Has he really got this? And of course he has. He does understand, and he's a sort of outwardly vulnerable person, probably, who finds strength through his work, and he's been given this gift of using his skills for the first time in his life, late on in his career, and he grabs it in a very quiet way. And I've always loved the way that he doesn't bang his own drum. He isn't after awards like I am. He's just wants to solve the crime with compassion. That's another thing about him. He's a very kind person, very compassionate, and that's nice to play. And so it sort of celebrates someone who's given an opportunity as much as anything else. So I enjoy that about him particularly, but I enjoy the relationship that he has with Tara. And I have a fantastic working relationship. We're very good friends. We get on so well, and we both love creating these characters and creating these stories. I think in the new season we're stretched further than we've been before, and there are occasions where each of us goes behind the other's back because we think that's the best thing to do. And of course, because we're now close and are friends, that becomes a real problem, because there's an element of trust that we've built up over this time. So the feeling that you might have, even for good reasons, have gone behind someone's back or done something a different way without talking, sharing it, that is a testament to how close they've become. And I think they also they have a similar sense of humour, despite their differences. Their humour is I think Tala's probably slightly ahead of Dodds, but they do have a connection. And the obvious thing to say, which continues, is that they're very different. But, it's a celebration of people being different and solving things.